vinyl resurgence? To us, vinyl never left. Welcome in to the Vinyl Community Podcasts.
Buddies, Concert Buddie back here on Vinyl Community Podcasts. It's the series. You love it. You hate it. You don't even know about it, but you're about to find out about it. Mind of the Record Collector. I've got a great guest, but the Mind of the Record Collector series, for the uninitiated, is a friendly reminder, is the series that asks what we collect, why we collect it, and how we find it. And I have a great guest who's going to teach us about how to find it. Well, don't give us all the secrets, but let me tell you my guest is Josh Norrid, who is the CEO and owner of Hi-Fidelity Records. Josh, how you doing today?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for coming on. I want to pick your brain. So if it gets a little uncomfortable, if you feel I'm getting a little too deep with the probes, you just eject.
Okay, right on.
Awesome. Well, if you don't know, Josh is also on YouTube. You can check out the channel Hi-Fidelity Records. It's out there. As of this recording, right about 900 subs. And I mean, that's pretty good return on, I think, about 20 videos. So, I mean, the quality is there. The content, the information is there. So we'll talk about the YouTube journey here in a little bit. But for the uninitiated, for folks who want to get to know you, Josh, what can you tell me about your vinyl collecting journey, your background, how it started? Lay it on me, brother.
Yeah, man. So, everyone has their own story about how they got on, and it depends on their age, right? That's part of it. How old are you and where were you, where were you if you first caught the bug? And for me, it was when I was in college and I was waiting tables at Steak and Ale, RIP. Anybody remembers Steak and Ale? Yeah, shout out to Steak and Ale, the brown bread. But anyways, but there was a record store there. Well, I was on Western, who's in Oklahoma City at the time, and I used to go across to the record store, and they sold CDs, but they also had vintage vinyl. And being a college student and being on a budget, and I did have at the time, this has got to be probably 2002.
Okay.
So I'm an old man now, so. But I had a stacker. I had like a stacker unit in my little apartment. If anybody didn't know what a stacker is, that's where you stack all the records, and when when one's done, it drops the next one. That way, it's kind of like an old school CD changer. So I would go into this record store, and I could get Led Zeppelin Houses of the Holy on CD for $23.99, or I could get it on vinyl for less than $10. And so it was kind of a no-brainer for me. Sure. And that's funny saying now where we're at now.
It's like upside down, as CDs are now at that lower price point, especially at stores or even the thrift, which maybe we'll get into. But yeah, it's completely 180. It's wild.
It is, yeah. And so that was kind of how I started, and I've been and even before then I had worked at when I was in high school, I had worked at Camelot Music, which later
blast from the past, mall retailer. Yeah,
mall retailer, super nerdy. Had my glasses on. I was like, "Come here, sir. Let me show you the Pulse CD. It's got the light on here, and just takes a watch battery." Yeah, and but yeah, so I'd been interested in music a long time, and I didn't grow up with a whole lot of money. We were pretty poor, so I only had probably like 5 or 6 CDs, coming into college. So it was really cool to be able to go and take my hard-earned cash from waiting tables and go buy 5 records for $20 or $25, So that was kind of how I really got into vinyl, even though I was interested in it previously. But I'm not of the age of where my parents had a record player and were playing it around, Sure. I mean, it had already kind of transitioned to tapes and CDs by the time I'm coming around. And so, yeah, I kept the interest, and later on worked at an actual vinyl record store about 2008-ish, somewhere around there, kind of like right before things started to really take off, and it became back into the vinyl, back into the consciousness, back into pop culture again, So that place didn't make it, which was sad. But
Hang on, I'm sensing a pattern, Josh. So the restaurant didn't make it. Now this record store didn't make it, and the common thread is Josh. Am I missing something?
no, man, Steak and Ale. That was years later. Years later. Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
Yeah, I didn't set that one into motion. But yeah. So I get that 2007-ish, and that's when I get into Discogs. Now, Discogs, before it was Marketplace, was just a way for us nerds to catalog our records. Oh, well, you have this version of, to take a common one, Led Zeppelin. Oh, well, mine has RL in the dead wax. Oh, cool. Well, what's the difference? Well, this is the one you want. And so it was that sort of cataloging and community, which was going on Discogs at the time, well before it was a Marketplace. And so, and then later on, I'm skipping years, but
No, you're fine.
I ended up working for Josie Records, which is kind of an outfit out of Dallas, Texas, and kind of the Southwest, Midwest region. And I ended up working for them as a buyer and a manager of one of their stores.
Is this still in Oklahoma, or were you in Dallas?
Yeah, this was in Tulsa. Yeah. I got the heads up they were coming, and I went and said, "Hey, I know lots of stuff. Hire me." Awesome. And they did, and I ran their store here for a while and was a buyer, traveling around looking for cool used record collections, and yeah. So I ended up kind of wanting. It was kind of a dead end. They were a newer company. I've always been kind of an ambitious guy. I never just wanted to be a quote unquote record store worker. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just because of, I felt like my knowledge and my work ethic, I could be more than that. And because I did know a lot in this, in this realm, I really wanted to move up in their company, but they let me know right away that was not going to happen. No matter how hard I worked. And so I decided, man, I'm going to go back and finish my business degree. I'm like, forget this, forget the records. I'll keep collecting them, but being in the business, this isn't it. I'll never be able to. My knowledge isn't worth anything to anyone, apparently, and which is the way I felt. And so I said, screw records. So I went back, tried to get.
Fortunately, you didn't sell off your records. You weren't that mad. I mean, you obviously changed direction, but you weren't throwing a lighter in the match and just watching them burn, right?
No, definitely not. No.
Okay, good. Just making sure.
Yeah, no. I'm crazy, but not that crazy. So anywho, I ended up. I go back. I spent about a year back in college. I almost finished my degree. I get a call from somebody else. Hey, I want to start a record store. You're the first person I thought of. So I won't go into the long and short of that.
When you think you're out, it's like The Godfather. Just when you think you're out, they pull you back in.
They pull you back in. Yeah, but that didn't work out. Not of my own. The person actually kind of had their own issues and kind of ran it out. And I haven't left there for a week, and another person calls me and says, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting a record store. You're the first person I thought of." And
heard this one before.
Yeah, and so obviously I didn't finish my business degree, sadly, and I was just like, "What do I do?" I was like, "Okay, well, cool. Yeah, let's do it." I mean, I'm obviously still passionate about it, and always feels good for people to want you. Obviously.
Oh yeah.
And so I went into that, and that kind of leads me into how I got at Analog Productions. And so I'm like, hey, I don't think I've ever told this story before, but I want to get a wholesale account with Analog Productions. They don't have, no one has a wholesale account in Oklahoma with them, and that'll set us apart if we, from the other record stores in Tulsa, which is where I'm located. I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so they wouldn't respond to me, but I ended up speaking to a gentleman who used to own the Cain's Ballroom here in Tulsa, which is a legendary venue here in downtown Tulsa. And he said, "Man, you sound just like somebody else I know, the way you talk about records." And I was like, "Who's that?" And he was like, "Man, Chad Cassim, he's got this company and up in Kansas." I was like, yeah. I was like, "I know who that is, right? Yeah, of course, yes." And he's like, "Man, you ought to talk to him." And I said, "I should, yes." And so that's my connect with him. About a week later, Chad calls me. I talked to him for about 5 minutes, and he goes, I'm not going to give, basically, I'm not really giving out any wholesale accounts. He goes, but what you need to do is you just need to come work for me.
Okay.
And I said, okay, because I've got this other guy that is invested in me too. So it was kind of a weird.
It's like The Bachelor. Is that what?
Yeah. And he's really the only one that knew that he, because he's in the game, and has been for obviously decades now. He knew that I knew what I was talking about. The other guys just assumed, because they don't, they're not huge. Everyone just wanted to cash in on the fad. And so Chad knew what I was talking about. So after 5 minutes, he's like, I need you to come. And I'm like, okay. So I decide to just go up there and visit. I come up there and visit. He's like, I need you to turn around this used record department for me. And, I want you to come work for me. And, no, I'm not going to give you a wholesale account. And so I have to go back and I'm, I'm thinking about it the whole time. Like, what the hell am I going to do? Because I have a house in Tulsa and Salina is 4 hours away. So it was kind of a tough situation. But eventually I just tell the guy that I was trying to work with, which we hadn't really gotten too far. We'd gotten a little ways. I was like, man, I have to take this opportunity. This is a big time, place, and, they make records, and, it's a big time deal for me. I have to go, I'm sorry, and I hope there's no hard feelings. And, I think over time there hasn't been. Maybe there was a little bit in the beginning, but
did you tell them that they couldn't get him the wholesale account?
Yeah, I was just kind of like, well, first I told him I'm going to go up there and visit. When I got back, I was like, well, it was actually, they wanted me to come work for them. And so, yeah, spent some time with, and of course this is during COVID, so it's literally just, I'm touring the whole like compound of Analog Productions by myself with Chad, and there's like not a soul around. So it's just kind of us walking around. But anyways, I'm like, well, I got to take the opportunity. I call and tell Chad. He's like, all right, well, you tell me when you want to come. So I'm so excited because it's just such a cool opportunity. And obviously, kind of like going to work at Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, right?
Sure,
sure. Like Willy Wonka invited me to come be one of the Oompa Loompas, or one of the head Oompa Loompas.
Right.
And so I end up, I drive down during an ice storm, which was not smart, but I didn't want to disappoint. I didn't want to disappoint Chad. I wanted to be there when I told him I was going to be there, but there was an ice storm. They had literally closed off all the highways coming out of Tulsa. So I had to drive through little towns and like take like back roads and stuff.
Oh, man. You must have really wanted this job, Josh.
I did. That tells you how crazy I am, and it was, I was having to go probably like 25 miles an hour the entire way because I distinctly remember being out on the highway driving through rural Oklahoma into Kansas and me being the only one for, yeah. And except for semis, there were some semis tipped over, and I remember driving over a little bridge in a little town coming out of Oklahoma, and it was completely iced over. And I thought, man, if I fly off this bridge, this will be the last of anybody.
This is it.
But I did. I finally made it, and they were like, "Hey, what happened to you?" And I was like, "You don't want to know. It was terrible." But anyways, so yeah, I worked for the Vinyl Vault. I definitely went in there and kind of got it organized and started to try to get things moving in the right direction and getting some good collections, because we do have people calling him all the time, but it's just, there's so much going on there, and he has so much going on, and there really needed to be somebody to field the calls. And we got things cleaned up. We came up with an organizational system and everything, because it was there hadn't been really anyone really like that cared enough to do anything with it, and so that it had fallen in disrepair. And so worked on that first, getting everything organized. But, I think the turning point for me there was, a gentleman called by the name of Larry Topper, and Larry Topper was a super collector out of out of the Bronx. Had been collecting since the 60s, and Larry was disabled. He was wheelchair in his wheelchair, so he was unable to play his records, and he really couldn't even send me pictures or videos of the records he had. But we spoke while I was at work, clocked in. He would call me while I was staying, actually. So I was commuting back and forth, but I was staying in the basement of where Blue Heaven Studios is, where the mastering lab.
Wow. So you still kept your place in Oklahoma, and wow. Okay, got it.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure what was going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wasn't going to roll. I wasn't going to put all of my pieces in one. All my eggs, one of my eggs in one basket. And so, I'm living in the bottom of there. So I'm sitting in the bottom of the church, and I'm talking to Larry Topper at like 10:30 at night. And we're talking about records, and eventually I'm like, I got to go see this guy. He's got some good stuff. This is worth it. And so I started to come up with the logistics of everything based on what he told me, how many records he had, so I was like, well, what size U-Haul do I need? How many boxes am I going to need? And no one else knows about this. So when I come to Chad and the other people at the Vinyl Vault, like, here's this guy, been talking to him for about 5 weeks now, on and off the clock. We need to go see him. I'm 100% sure he has a fantastic collection. Here's the logistics of what we need. And I was like, I'll take care of it all. What I mean? I'll get the materials there, and get our U-Haul ready, and get the plane tickets booked, and give me one person that's able-bodied to come with me, and let's ride. And that's what we did. And I hadn't even bought the collection yet, mind you.
I feel like, was there a video? I feel like I've seen this, or I've heard about it somewhere. Did you guys document this?
Yeah, so I'm documenting it. No one even asks me to do it, but I'm documenting everything on my phone because I already knew this was going to be an epic adventure. You know what I mean?
Smart,
and,
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm filming everything, and to bring back so we can actually, maybe make a video, or even just from my own, my own memories. And so I take another guy, we fly up. I already have a U-Haul rented. I have materials on hold because we haven't even bought the collection yet. So,
you probably wanted to put eyes on it just to make sure before you literally pick up the U-Haul, procure the boxes, put your comrade is back in action, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, definitely. So we get there. He's like on the 8th floor of this condo in the Bronx, and we get there, and the first thing I see right off the gate is he's got records everywhere, but not like laying in piles and stuff, but pretty well, and he's got IKEA shelves and stuff and everything. But the first thing I see is a white label. It's just laying there, a white label promo of A Day at the Races, and I'm like, and then the next thing I see is like a test pressing for Talking Head 77, and I'm like,
oh daddy.
I'm like, I was exactly right. And we get a tour, and he's got records in every room, SACDs, gold CDs, all in this like probably 800 square foot condo. And after that, it was like a fever dream between me and it was just us like, pulling stuff and putting it in boxes. Did you see this? Yeah, it's an original Jeff Buckley Grace from the 90s with the shrink wrap. Oh shit, here's an original Rolling Stones.
Right. Just can you top this kind of deal? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and there was just so all in all about 8,000 records, maybe a couple thousand SACDs, gold CDs, and it was crazy. I think some of the funnier things that happened where, we have this U-Haul, and in New York, it's not like the Midwest, or, people are, number one, they're impatient, and, and the rules are the rules, Jack. And so that U-Haul, we had to back it up probably a half block away. So not only did we have to come all the way down all 8 floors, then we had to take a dolly and dolly it down half a block to this damn U-Haul, pardon my French, and put it all in there. And then after we're done each night, we have to find somewhere to park it.
and not get it stolen or a ticket or towed or yeah.
That's it. Yeah. So that first day I go into a bodega and I'm like looking around, and like right behind the counter, I see one of the old clubs, and I'm like, give me that. I need a club for the steering wheel.
Yeah.
And let me get a lock. And I just parked it right there in his little neighborhood. You weren't supposed to park it there, but I thought, well, we'll see what happens. So we got away with it for 2 days. The third day we drop it off, and we're waiting on an Uber to take us back to our hotel, because we obviously can't park the U-Haul at the hotel.
Right.
Right, yeah. It's not like it's not like the Midwest, where you can they have huge parking lots and stuff. So we left it there on the third day. Actually, what ends up happening is we're sitting out there waiting for our Uber, and like a cop is like right there. He's like writing us a ticket, and my buddy's like, "Let's go get it." And I was like, "No." I was like, "They're not going to tow it after they give us a ticket. They'll give us a chance to make it right." And they did. So we came back the next day and got the ticket, and I ended up having to park it along a highway where a bunch of food trucks were. Okay. And I was like, if the food trucks park here.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's like camouflage almost, all the other food trucks. And okay.
I distinctly remember pulling in. I pulled into a parking lot to just turn around to park. And the guy was like, get that out of here. And I was like, bro, I was like, I'm going this way. And he goes, that's right, you are. I was like, okay. So, yeah. So anyways, that, quite a trip. And then anyways, we ended up driving that all the way back from the Bronx all the way to Salina, Kansas, which if I had to do it again, we would have just put it on a crate and freighted it. But
okay, lesson learned. And we'll get into lessons learned. So that's a good one.
Yeah, but that would have been difficult where we were at. Sometimes logistics of where you're at and what's, allowed. We
could varied, location probably. Yeah.
Yeah. There wouldn't, even looking back, there was no real way for us to like pallet it up and leave it somewhere. I mean, if it wasn't the way we did it, he would have just had to have shipped it to us, which he obviously couldn't because he was disabled. And so that's the way we did it. And we had to drive it all the way back. I think we got back on the morning of the third day or something like that. And we were driving back into Salina, Kansas, there towards the I call it the compound because it's all kind of a bunch of buildings there next to each other. And it is monsooning, absolutely monsooning rain. And we get back, we park it. I drive this gentleman back to his house, and we park the U-Haul there at the Acoustic Sounds office. And I start to drive back to where I'm staying, and I think, oh man, in the U-Haul it says, there's a sticker I remember seeing, it said, this cabin is not waterproof. It is only water resistant.
Oh no.
And it is coming down crazy. And I drive all the way back to that guy's house, and I'm knocking. He goes like, he's like, dude, what's up? He's like, I'm tired. And I was like, I tell him, I'm like, do you have some tarp? And he was like, I do. We have to go back, and it's just pouring. I mean, crazy buckets. And so he's like, all right. So we drive back and unlock the truck and throw tarps all over the records. Cause like, if we did all this and these records are soaking wet, I'm going to like
hate it. Just hate it.
Yeah. I'm going to throw myself off the Tallahatchie Bridge or whatever. No good. But anyways, ended up being just the greatest record collection I've ever seen. And if you hooked Chad up to a lie detector test, he'd say the same. In fact, he said it at the time, you know what I mean? And
see this makes me want to go back and watch the video now, because I do, like I said, I do remember that. I remember some of the story, the disabled gentleman, a lot of boxes, but I didn't know who you were at the time. So now I know you.
Yeah.
So it's going to be even better because I'll actually see the documented proof, which was very smart on your part, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. And so what ends up happening and why that's important, not just to me, but also to Acoustic Sounds and Analog Productions is what a lot of people don't know is we set that all up kind of like a little baby record store there inside the offices, where it can kind of be shopped. And about a week, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, something like that, Craig Cowman flies in on his, the CEO of Atlantic Records. Obviously he discovered Big E and Little Kim and et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, he flies in to shop this because that's what he's into, because these are mint originals. These are not, that's what I try to tell people, these mint originals, you just don't find them from the 60s and the 70s and the 80s.
Yeah.
And the test pressings. And I mean, the 7-inch collection, thousands of 7 inches. And you're like, oh, that's no big deal. Ones you've never seen, they're all mint and they all have the picture sleeves. And some of them from like Germany and Japan. I mean, we're talking rare air. And so Kalman flies in, and I find out that's kind of when the discussion for the Atlantic 75 really starts, because really he's trying to get the Zeppelin. Obviously, is really his main thing he wants to get, right? But and so Kalman coming in, and that's where I met Craig, and I still talk to Craig every now and again, and that's where I met him and struck up kind of a little relationship with him, and and that's kind of how I think the Atlantic 75 thing started. So it kind of all started from me talking to Larry Topper, and
I like that. That's an interesting correlation. Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, go buy some Atlantic 75 titles. They're awesome. But anyways, kind of the same situation with Josie Records. There's really nowhere for me to go there, no matter how smart I am, no matter how hard I work. That's just kind of.
Yeah. Well, and I'm picking up you're an ambitious guy, so I think I think it almost feels predestined that you would do your own thing. And tell me about, you obviously come to this realization. You're like, okay, probably acoustic sounds can't feed me what I'm ambitious for. How do you kind of put into mind, I need to do it for myself, I need to start my own situation?
Well, it was tough because I don't come from money. I don't have a trust fund. I don't have people who are just willing to shell out a lot of money to me, even though I have great credit and I do have a mortgage and home and I'm a responsible individual. I just don't have enough capital nor have access to anyone who has the capital. And so I just it was a tough decision for me. I had $10,000 in cash, and I had my record collection, which we'll get back to selling some of your own records, because that did have to happen.
Of
and
course.
So yeah, I kind of toyed around with working for Vinyl Me Please and had some interviews with them, but in the end, it just was like, I just need to try to do this on my own. I just turned 40. And I was like, I've been doing this for a lot of other people. And if a lot of other people think that I can do it, then maybe I can. I'm going to at least try, because at least I don't want to be on my deathbed someday and say, man, I really loved records. I sure wish I'd tried to start my own thing. I sure made a lot of people a lot of money doing it. You know what I mean? But I never really made myself any money.
Yeah, shoot your shot. Yep, I get it. Shoot
my shot. Yeah. So I had $10,000 in my record collection, and I just was like, all right, well, fuck it up. Let's roll. You know what I mean? Let's start it. And I'd learned a little bit in college about how to start a business and get an LLC. And, the things I didn't know how to do as well, like graphic design. I have a buddy of mine who helps me out with it. He did the logo for me. We kind of worked on that together, and
cool.
Yeah, man, it just kind of started from that. And I was lucky enough to pick up a pretty sweet collection here really close to me right to start off with, that I got at a decent, good price where I could make build some capital.
Yeah. Yep.
And man, that's been what, 2.5 years ago, I guess. And I'm still in business, and it's not easy.
No, I think there's a lot of us out there who are avid record collectors who have definitely considered, and I've talked to folks on the podcast who have done it, right? Obviously yourself included. And it's a big leap of faith. It's a big bet on yourself, but it's also, it's daunting, because turning something you're passionate about into a business is one thing, but then making sure that you're setting yourself up for success. And obviously there's a lot of trials and tribulations. Maybe we'll get into some of those. But one thing I wanted to ask you is, the part of that logic tree of people thinking, can I do it? Should I do it? Because you don't have a brick and mortar. It's primarily online. Is that safe to say? Or describe your business model for folks who don't know.
Yeah, sure. So I would love to have a brick and mortar. Where I'm at, unfortunately, I'm not sure could support audiophile and rare records. I mean, even though Tulsa is a million plus people in the area, in the metro area. We just don't have a big enough, population of people that collect these records. And so, and obviously I don't have the capital to build out a store anyways. So I just kind of started online. I started selling on Discogs, obviously, to start off with, like I had for years and years. And, you'll never, that was one of my selling points to Chad when I started up. I was like, I can list 400 things a day on Discogs. And he was like, I don't believe you. And I actually had a video, right? A time-lapse video where I showed.
Actually, challenge, bet accepted. Yeah, challenge accepted.
Yeah. I was like, I'm quick, and I'm quick. There's some, but anyways, so yeah, I'm online, and then I kind of evolved, and I have a website now to try to circumvent some of those third-party fees that come from Discogs or eBay. I would like to not give them my money, even though I do. They're valuable tools to have. And I basically sell through, my social media, my YouTube. I've integrated Shopify into my social media, so I'm sure you've seen pictures where the link pops up in the photo, and you can.
I saw that with this recent Danny Kaye collection you've been advertising. First I'd seen it, that was embedded in the actual post that you could literally, and that's great because anything about conversion, and not to get into e-commerce here, but anything that is one step removed from getting somebody to convert a sale is brilliant. And the fact that literally it would take you to the PDP just by clicking, and then there's one less step to get you to overthink or underthink and not convert. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's kind of what, that's kind of my business model right now, and maybe a brick.
And it sounds like you're pretty diversified because obviously, like you're talking about, there's only so much road you can tow with Discogs, eBay, all the fly-by-nights that kind of come up. There are people who sell directly through social media. I know there's a lot of sellers who do like a pseudo Instagram store. So the fact that you can do all those things, plus you have your own website, like you're talking about, it's smart because then if one thing breaks, then you've got the other things to rely on. So I like
that's it. Yeah. Well, I'm in it for the long haul. This isn't I'm not, this isn't like we discussed. This isn't, I take it seriously. It's a serious thing to me. And sure, you can buy off Discogs, and there are some reputable sellers off Discogs. But, when you buy from me and buy from my website, number one, that I know what I'm talking about the records. I know how to grade them. That I'm not going to hassle you, unless you're like completely, absolutely full of it about a return. And, I'm going to ship it to you and get it to you in the condition that you ordered it in. I know how to pack and ship things, and I know how to grade them. And so there's some value in that. And I do charge, there's some pieces that I have that are maybe a little more expensive than Discogs. And when people say, hey, Bob James on Discogs with no profile picture has it for $500 and you got it for $650 or $600,
Mm-hmm.
And you match him, and I'm like, buy it from Bob James and good luck.
Well, there's something I like to say, and I think relative to cost, right? If you have a premium product at a premium price, there's a premium expectation. And full transparency, I didn't say this earlier, but I have bought a record from you. Yeah. And so everything you're saying, I can attest to it because there is apprehension, you know what I mean? Especially if you haven't done business with somebody and, they talk the talk and walk the walk. And I can say again, just one transaction is a couple months ago, but packs well. It's clear you take a lot of pride in what you're selling and what you're talking about because, if it wasn't, especially as we're talking about accelerated price points, because it's, there's only so much of a marketplace for that. The expectation is like, if you say it's near mint, if you say it's whatever you call it, that's the first thing. The second thing is you got to, some would say shipping it is the most important thing, which it is to some, but all of that is relative to what you're talking about, the price, right? And if you got the best of the best, then don't worry about the rest of the rest because you're going to continue to earn that trust, not even earn the trust, but just demonstrate exactly what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing. I want people to get it and be like, oh, wow, this is really well, man, or if they paid for me to clean it on the KL audio and they see it in the fresh sleeve and the fresh inner sleeves, I want them to be like, wow, I can play this right away. I know somebody cleaned this, man, he sure, that's the stuff that keeps people coming back. Cause I know how I feel, you got to put yourself in the consumer's place.
Yeah. Yep.
And because I am a consumer of this product as well, I know what I want, and I want to give that to other people because I want them to be. I want to keep them as a customer, and keep them as a friend, and spread the word and stuff, And I'm not a dummy. I know that some things that used to be super super valuable and super, like, some of these MoFi one steps, some of them aren't even worth as much as they sold for.
True story. It's funny you bring that up because I'm processing. I'm reorganizing my own collection right now, and I'm thinking about getting off of the one steps because I don't know if they're going to hold value. Exactly to your point. Two, I don't necessarily know if I need those in my collection when you can hunt the OGs and all that stuff. But that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, I mean, like, this one is going to retain its value.
Oh yeah, Santana Brax is the first one step. Yep.
Yeah, this one's going to retain its value just because it just sounds amazing, and they didn't make a lot of them.
Right.
And then, stuff also like even the Donald Fagen.
Sure, Night Fly. Mm-hmm.
Is going to retain its value. It doesn't suffer from the DSD gate because, well, it was a digital recording to begin with.
The jump. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, so that's kind of, and, in the bill, I think the only one that was done all analog was the Village Vanguard. So that'll retain its value, even though I know that UHQR has came out and everyone's gaga. The FOMO is in full effect now on that. So,
well, let's circle back to one more thing before we move to the next topic. So obviously, small business owner yourself. Can you tell the audience, like, what's one thing that you wish you'd done differently in the early stages?
That's a good question. I think that one of the things I would have done in the beginning was to be on more podcasts like yours and to get my name out.
Oh, of course. Yeah. See, I love it. Yeah.
yeah. Because you guys, you guys like you and Steve Westman, you guys are kind of driving the community and a lot of the interest and presenting the people that you believe know a lot about the hobby, to the masses and educating them, and they're educating us. And I think that was one of the things that I would have done in the beginning to try to just kind of get the business name out there, because it's not like I was at Analog Productions for like 10 years, so some people knew who I was and some people didn't. I just think, you just get out there and just meet as many people in the hobby as you can, or the business that you're in. Go out there and just try to network.
Yep, that's right. Similar vein, is there anything like I said before, a lot of us have thought about, man, it'd be cool to own my own record store. It'd be cool to see a building. You're like, man, that'd be a neat little spot for a record store or whatever, right? It's obviously a passing thought. And for people who take the move, it's a big step, like we talked about. What is one thing that you would recommend anyone starting a record business to be aware of, or something you learned, or just something that's like at the front of your head of like, oh, you hear somebody saying, man, I'd like to own a record store too. I like what you do, blah, blah, blah. What's one thing you would just lead in and be like, well, here?
Yeah, sure. I think the main thing that comes to mind when you mention that for me, there is little to no profit margin in new records. A lot of people don't know that. People think because there are so many new record stores popping up, or there were, I think they probably have slowed down as people have learned this. There is little to no profit margin in new records. You might buy a record for $19 and the MSRP on it is $24.99. Now you got to sell a shit ton of those. You got to move a lot of volume. So the money is in the used records. Now, where do you find the used records? Well, now that there's a million record stores all pulling at that used record
availability, right? Yeah,
that's out there, it becomes very, very difficult to find those, especially where I'm at, in Tulsa, this isn't the East, or the majority of the records are on the East and the West Coast, the good records. Here in the Midwest, there are good records, but they're the ones that have been snatched up and people are keeping them.
There's holders. We're holders here in the Midwest for sure.
Yeah, because it's hard to find good used records. And so that would be, unless you just really know what you're doing, or you feel like you have enough capital that you can just inventory everyone else in your city. Like, man, I got $10 million and I'm going to start off with $3 million worth of inventory, which is actually not as much as you think it is, but and I'm just going to out inventory everybody and that way, maybe if I move enough new stuff, I can keep it rolling. I mean,
muscle move. Sure.
You're just not going to it's going to be tough, and I see a lot of people get into it. They think, they can go, that they've seen them at garage sales or estate sales, and they go on Discogs and they're like, oh, wow, this record's worth $200. Well, not in VG condition with a rat-eaten jacket.
Rat bites. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the main thing to remember is, when you're dealing with anything that might be collectible or whatever it is, there's more variables than you think that they are. You know what I mean about these records? The pressing, where it was pressed at, what, condition, which version is it? Is it a 70s repress? And this is just stuff your normal person just doesn't know. And so when they get into it, it can be eye-opening for them. So I would say, unless you can find a goober like me to run it for you, you might ought to invest your money in real estate.
It's not a bad idea. Land has always been a trendy ownership piece. Or you can hire Josh as a consultant. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
Sure.
I'm not saying Josh would do it, but just a thought. One thing you just hit on that it's a great segue. It's almost like you saw my show notes. Let's talk about developing leads, because obviously, especially talking about where you are and where I am in the Midwest, you're exactly right. Like finding collections. I always wonder, because store owners do have the luxury of being static and like people can just kind of drop in and be like, hey, I've got a collection. And I've talked to some of my friends who own shops and heard some of those trials and tribulations. But for your business model, and you talked about networking is paramount. How do you develop these leads on collections? Is it truly just through word of mouth, or do you have a honey hole or a couple different folks that you've been kind of chipping off pieces of their collection? Tell us about it.
Well, yeah, it's I've had, a lot of, because I don't have a brick and mortar store and there isn't people bringing me, records in there. That can be good and bad. It's good because if a collection's in, let's say Maine, like the Danny Kaye collection, I can just roll out whenever I want. But also people aren't consistently, there's not an ecosystem, right, of people buying, selling, trading, et cetera, with me. So it becomes very difficult. And just for me, like the Danny Kaye collection was just, I had, known of Danny, he was a customer there at Acoustic Sounds and Analog Productions. And I just kind of heard through the grapevine that he might be interested in moving some of his collection. And so that's been a year ago.
Working the lead. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, working it. Yeah. And I have a lot of people who call me from the YouTube channel, and it becomes difficult. You have to get tricky with not tricky like trying to trick people, but tricky how to make a deal.
More nuance. Is that a better word to use, maybe?
Yeah. Because it's not just like, because some of these folks, they want $200 a piece for their records. And you're just kind of like, your records aren't worth $200 a piece on average. I can't make any money off that.
Sure.
And I've had a lot of people call me and they think that their mobile fidelities are like the only ones ever made. Like they have the dark.
one of one. Yeah.
They know that it's valuable, and they looked it up and they saw one go for $500 and they want $400, and that's good for that. And they frame that good for you. Oh, you make $100. Well, I can't sell this one for $400, so it gets tricky with people. And then those people think, well, you're trying to rip me off. You're trying to tell me what I have isn't worth anything. And now I don't trust you but I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I've seen a lot of records over the decades. So, I know what I'm looking at. And so I'm always being as honest with people.
Sure, it's paramount. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm being honest with them, and some people, they don't like that. It's kind of like, when people come into Pawn Stars and they tell them like, hey, well, I might get this much for it, and so I can only give you this much because this is the profit margin that I need, in order to make a profit and keep things rolling, So people need to realize that when they are trying to sell their record collections, that I can't, no one's going to give you, 2/3 of the value unless it's something they think that they can move right away. Right.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, but finding the leads, it's just, everyone's got their own way. Some people have honey holes. Some people, I'm just trying to work and leverage all my relationships that I have, telling people, hey, I'm buying records, or I'm consigning. I do some consignment, which works out pretty well for the people who think their records are worth $200 a piece. You can be like,
as a reality check, huh?
Yeah, we can do consignment, and that's worked out really well. Once people started to trust me, and because it's really a trust thing when you're doing the consignment, because you're picking their records up or they're sending them to you, and then they're trusting you to be honest with them about what they're selling for, and that you're giving them the money that they're owed, and I've just been really, really fortunate that people have put their trust in me and let me move some of their collections and find them new homes, and make them a little bit of money to buy whatever else that their heart desires. But
for sure,
it's difficult. Don't try to put an ad in any of the magazines. They're way expensive. I will say that.
Fair enough. Well, it's interesting that you brought up Pawn Stars, or like American Pickers, right? Because for a novice, or for people who have never seen that side of the deal, right? It's exactly, a lot of that is like, it was eye-opening for me years ago when they started those shows, because exactly what we're talking about is perceived value versus market value sometimes aren't on the same page, right? And to hear it firsthand from you, it sounds like, people have an inflated sense of value, not only in what they have, but what they could get for it. And it's probably not easy sometimes being that, like, hey, look, you're like the reality check. You're the one saying, hey, here's really what it could go for. Plus, you've got to layer in your time, your overhead, and your involvement, because last time I checked, this wasn't a charity situation, right? You are a for-profit enterprise, right? Which I think sometimes gets lost in the sauce, because like you're saying, margin, obviously expenses. There's so much more that goes into obtaining the materials, like you said, obtaining the collections, than just, oh yeah, I saw somebody got $300 for this on eBay once. It's not that simple.
Right. Or they go and they look at, that's the thing where Discogs, knowing how to read it and knowing what you're looking at, as a seller, you can see the back end and you can see what things have sold for. And somebody may say, once going back to $500, because that just seems to be a good number, hey, the high on that's $500. I want $300 for it. But then you show them one sold for $500 5 years ago. And
there's so much to it, right? Yeah.
And since then, none have, and it looks like they're going for about $200, which is right at the median. And in fact, if you study and you spend enough time on Discogs, you'll find that most things sell for the median price. They do, whether they're near mint or not. Now, if you got a sealed copy, then you can
feel better about yourself. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but you have to know how many. And there's a lot of how many are actually for sale. How many people have it? How many people want it? Like if I look and it says 1,000 people have it and 50 people want it, then that tells me already, even though at one point it might have sold for $500, that the want for it is, the FOMO is dead. It's not as desirable of a piece as it once was, or record as it once was, and so those are the things that the
intangibles, for sure.
Yeah, but there's stuff like, for instance, this, which there's just no. I'll show you this one. There's no comp for this. You can't look this up. So I'm kind of the arbiter of the price. I don't know if I can take it out of the jacket so you can see it.
It looks like a test pressing. I'm just based on.
So this is actually, I'll hold it up. We can see it. This is actually a test pressing. This was actually done to send to some people. Now you'll see it says 45 on there, but what you don't know, or if you do know, and Analog Productions never made any 45 pressings of the Norrid Jones catalog. So this sampler right here is the only way you're going to hear these selections from Come Away With Me and these selections from Feels Like Home at 45 RPM. and they only made about 30 of these and sent them out, but the label never approved them to do
The
to
full
cut
production run, yeah.
full production run of these guys. So there's no comp for this. So I could put it up for $1,000, and if somebody says I'm crazy, I'll be like, well, I'm only crazy. If somebody's a huge Norrid Jones fan and they want something that no one else has, those collectors are out there. They really are, and they'll give you big money for these test pressings. I mean, especially something that's like this, or here's another one. I mean, this is not as cool. It doesn't look as cool. It doesn't have the one sheet on the front, but this is the Cisco Asia test pressing. From Cisco, which ended up becoming Impex. Everybody's familiar with Impex Records, and so this was cut by Kevin Gray and Robert Pincus. So it's just something that I even talked to AB from Impex, and she's like, I don't even have a test pressing of that. So stuff, and there's no comps for it. So it's like you just put it up and see what somebody will give you for it. So stuff like that's a little different than maybe a production record. So
yeah, no, it makes sense. It definitely makes a lot of sense. As we're coming up on time, I did want to ask you, because you did talk about before, one of the arms that you're marketing your business is through obviously YouTube, Vinyl Community. I was just curious your thoughts, overall impressions, because you've had your channel, like 2 years? That sound right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you, because obviously you're running a business. So to find time to document some of your business, to promote your business, like what goes into your thought process there? And then overall thoughts on the vinyl community. Think it makes the community better? Does it change your approach to collecting yourself? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, my YouTube channel is a little different than maybe I think this is my perception, than yours or maybe Steve's, or
Sure.
You guys are more of I guess you're trying to be influencers, I suppose. That's kind of
no,
right?
that's fair. Yeah.
I feel like it's a bad word. I don't want to throw it on you.
No. I get. No, I mean, channel's definitely different. Like yours is definitely I would say singular focus. Well, primary focus is obviously promoting the business, but also you like talking about. And again, maybe I'm using the right a niche in the hobby about the audiophile and the certain one of ones, the choice cherry pieces that are earmarked for a certain collector. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, and I've done some shootouts on there, and I'm not just, I'm not like, hey man, I got to fire this camera up 3 times a week and just garble
exactly
about
right. Yeah, content monster. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I have to have something to say to do it, because it does take me a little more time. I've got to actual not filming it on my cell phone and stuff, so I have to actually set things up and put my powder on my face and all those things to get it.
Do you have a makeup team, Josh? I'm just going to ask you the hard questions. Do you have a makeup?
Yeah, that's one of the things I had to outsource.
That's good. Spoken like a real businessman.
yeah, I had to outsource the makeup team. So yeah, it takes a little more effort. So I want to make sure I actually have something to say, and that I actually am informed about it, because there is, for better or worse, there's a lot of people who are just talking out their butts about and they don't really know what they're talking about, and because the barrier to entry is so
low,
so low now, anybody can start their own channel, and
anybody right here.
well, right, yeah.
I know
But you're in the hobby and you're knowledgeable. It's a little different than little Bobby down the street, or whoever, whatever, you know what I mean? So it's so I want to make sure I have something to say, because otherwise I'm just wasting my time and everyone else's time. And
well, and you're also building a brand too, right? Because the worst thing you can do is pretend to be something you're not, and then and also we were talking about when you're selling, right? You charge a premium price, but the expectation comes with it, and you want to not only meet the expectation but beat the expectation. And I'm sure you probably take a similar approach to the content you're putting out. You don't do it every week, but when you do put it out, has more meaning, has more impact. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm going to come in, like I did one for the Danny Kaye collection, and kind of detailing some cool pieces from that. And I'm going to do some shootouts coming up. I think I'm going to do probably do an STP shootout, the purple.
It's coming. I got the shipping notification. They love to send them to me on Thursdays. And
yeah, but I have a UK promo 45 that has a 12-inch 45 that has Vaseline and still remain some cuts from purple on it.
Awesome.
And so that'll be a good thing to kind of shoot it out, see if it can better that kind of vintage promo pressing. So, cool stuff like that. If I feel like it's pertinent to what people are talking about, I'm gonna put it up on there. But mainly, I want to show people cool records I have for sale and talk about them and educate people. And I think one of the things that I would really, if I did end up opening a brick and mortar store, would be able to have like some actual equipment, some hi-fi equipment. And I don't mean like $1 million stuff, but more like accessible stuff like, like a Klipsch or a Macintosh. I know some people may not think that's accessible, but
you have some Mac stuff. I've seen a Macintosh sitting behind you in your videos, and that's a place I'd like to aspire to one day. I'm not there in my collecting building, right? But it's something that I can appreciate. And yeah, I mean, there are levels to this, like there is anything else, and you have to define what those levels mean to you. But yeah, accessibility, you use a perfect word there.
Yeah, but I would love to be able to show people what it could sound like on even that level of a system. You know what I mean? Because people just don't know. There's so many people that get into the game, and then maybe they have a Crosley, which is cool to start off with. I'm not gonna hate. I'm not gonna shoot a Crosley. Or
no gatekeeping on this channel, Josh.
No gatekeeping, right? You want to start there? Perfect. If that gets you into the game, gets you into the hobby, I love it. But a lot of people get into it and they're like, man, this doesn't really sound any better than listening to on Spotify. These people are full of it. Or they have a U-turn, maybe some powered speakers, and they're like, this sounds okay, but it really doesn't, it's not blowing my socks off. So what are these people talking about? You know what I mean? And I know everyone collects for a different reason. Everyone does. But I think it would be cool to show people how good vinyl could sound. I mean, it's just like going in to, if you went into a television shop or you went into a Best Buy, well, you go and you look at all the televisions, right? Don't you? And you say, man, which one of these has the best picture? And you look and you say, well, golly, this one's 1080p and this one's 4K. And then, let's just, for example, say they had an old tube television sitting down there. Well, you wouldn't buy that to plug your Blu-ray player into, would you?
Yeah, if you're using a CRV for Blu-ray, you're doing it wrong. Just letting you know.
Yeah. So I for that same reason, and I would like to be able to show people, not that they might think they may not be able to hear a difference, but if they did, it would be cool to bring people.
It would be an unlock. Yeah, it'd be an unlock for the next expanse, the next information seeking for a collector. I think that's great. I think it's kind of what we were talking about off camera about the communal part of the community, and not that people use the word pay it forward, but just in terms of like information share. I think it's very invaluable to take what you have and share it with other people. And I mean, you're preaching to the choir on that, my friend.
Definitely. Awesome.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, Josh, we are running up on time. We could do this. Maybe we should do a rematch. We should maybe do this down the road, especially if you get another killer collection like this Danny K. It's funny when you put all the promo stuff out. I go to the website and checked it out, and I was like, all right, there's a couple nice pieces on here. And I was like, it's one of those things, as Chad likes to say, buy now or cry later, because I had it bookmarked on my browser, and I went back the next day and it was gone. So good for you. Sucks for me, but lesson learned that don't wait, don't sleep, as we like to say. But anyway, Josh Norrid, the channel name and the business name, Hi-Fidelity Records. Josh, been a real pleasure, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Thanks to the vinyl community, man. Keep collecting, man. Whatever level you're on, man, keep doing it and
have fun.
Yeah, man, have fun. That's what this is all about. We can all argue about all the pressings and throw a fit and get mad about things that don't matter. But really, what matters is the music and collecting and man, just the brotherhood and the sisterhood of it all. So thanks for having me, brother.
Well said, my friend. We'll do it again.
And that was another trip around the turntable. Thanks for listening to Vinyl Community Podcasts.